Okay, Assalamualaikum. We will continue the lecture of chapter 10 for part 3. So, an overview of angiosperm reproduction. So, as shown in this figure A, is an idealized flower. So, the label are the structure of the flower. This part is called sepal, and then there is petals of the flower, and the lower part is called receptacle. And then the middle part, this whole structure is called carpel, consists of the top is stigma and then style that is connected to the ovary. And then this whole structure is called stamen, consists of a filament and anther on the top. So this figure shows the life cycle of angiosperm, figure B. Okay, start with the mature flower on the sporophyte plant, diploid. In the ovary, it contains ovule, a diploid ovule, which then will undergo meiosis. So after meiosis process, it will form a megaspore, which is haploid and half of the genetic copy in the megasporangium. And then this will form a female gametophyte, which is the embryo sac, which consists of the antipodal cell, central cell, synergids, and the haploid egg. And then in the anther, microsporocytes, which is diploid in the microsporangium, will undergo meiosis, producing a microspore, which consists of generative cell and also tube cell. So this is the male gametophyte in the pollen grain. And then when the pollen grain arrive on the stigma of the flower by pollination process, the tube cell will generate a pollen tube which deliver the sperm to the ovary of the flower. And then when it reach, it will discharge the sperm nuclei, which will fuse with the egg nucleus by fertilization, producing zygote, a diploid zygote 2N, and the nucleus of developing endosperm. And then this eventually will become the seed of the plant, consisting of the embryo and then the endosperm and the seed coat. This seed will become germinating seed and eventually will be a mature plant, which will produce a mature flower in the sporocyte plant, and the cycle will continue to occur. Okay, flower structure. So flower are the reproductive shoots of the angiosperm sporophyte. So they are composed of 4 floral organs. So the first one are the sepals. Here are the sepals. And then on top we have the petals of the flower. And then here is the stamen of the flower, consists of anther and filament. And then the carpel of the flower consists of stigma, style, and ovary. There are many variations in floral structure which has evolved during the 140 million years of angiosperm history. So these are the characteristics of the flower. Can be differ in the symmetry. For example, bilateral symmetry For example, in orchid flower, and radial symmetry. For example, in daffodil flower. These are the sepals, and then there are fused petals in the middle. And then flowers can be different in ovary location. So superior ovary located at the top of the sepal, and then semi-inferior ovary in the middle of between the sepal, and then inferior ovary is located below the location of the sepal. And then in terms of floral distribution, there are lupine inflorescence and sunflower inflorescence. And then there is also it is also differ in reproductive variation. For example, it can be a monoecious species such as maize, or dioecious species such as Sagittaria latifolia, or commonly known as arrowhead. So now we will learn about the flower terminology. So all the terminology related to flower. First is complete. Complete means that flower having a sepals, petals, stamen and pistils. So all 4 parts. So for incomplete is the flowers lacking of one or more of these 4 parts. It can be lacking of the sepals, it can be lacking of the petals, or more than one structures. And then perfect is known as flowers having both stamen and pistils. Sepals and petals may or may not be present. So the flower that has both stamen and pistil is called perfect flowers. So imperfect is the unisexual flowers. So this flower only contain either stamen or pistil, but it does not contain both. So it's only unisexual. Monoecious is bisexual. So the stamen and pistils are in separate flowers but borne on the same individual. That means one individual contains of both staminate flower, contains of both staminate flower and also pistillate flower. So male and female flower is in the same individual. However, for dioecious, this means unisexual. The staminate and pistillate flowers are on different individuals. So one individual only produce staminate flowers or only produce pistillate flowers. So only unisexual. So sinuaceous are plants with all perfect flowers, and polygamous are plants with mixture of perfect and imperfect flowers. For sexual reproduction in angiosperm, so the sexual reproduction involves 2 fundamental processes, which are meiosis and fertilization. So meiosis is the process of rearrangement of genes. So it is a reductional division of cell. So in this division of cell, the chromosome are reduced to a haploid set, becoming N, only single copy. And in fertilization, the process of fusion of the haploid gametes to form a diploid zygote, 2N, a complete copy of the gene. So plant can be fertilized by pollination. For example, pollination by bees or birds. So most of the plants undergo alternation of generation with 2 phases. The first one is gametophyte phase and the second one is sporophyte phase. In gametophyte phase, gametophyte is the haploid multicellular stage in the life cycle. So gametophyte develop from a haploid spore. The male gametophyte, or known as the pollen grain, produces sperm. This is the male gamete. And the female gametophyte, the embryo sac, produces egg. This is the female gamete. And eventually, the male and female gametes will fuse or fertilize to form diploid zygote, which then the zygote develops into a multicellular sporophyte by mitosis process. So in sporophyte phase, sporophyte is the multicellular diploid stage in the life cycle. Sporophyte develop from the zygote. So each sporophyte has double set of chromosome, complete copy, 2n. In angiosperm and gymnosperm, the sporophyte phase is more notable than the gametophyte stage. The sporophyte divides by meiosis to produce haploid spores. So meiosis process will result in haploid N, only a single copy of the chromosome. And then the spores develop into gametophyte. So spores and gametophyte are haploid. In angiosperm, pollination is the transfer of pollen from an anther to a stigma. So in gametophyte development and pollination, when the pollination is successful, a pollen grain produces a structure called pollen tube. So this tube will grow down into the ovary and eventually discharge sperm near the embryo sac. So this figure shows cross-pollination. So these are the pollen grains on the anther. So the pollen will stick to the bee as it visits the flower to collect food. And then when the bees travel, it goes to another flower of the same plant type. And then the pollen that already stick to the bees will transfer to the stigma of the pistil of the other flower. This will cause fertilization. So this process is called cross-pollination. So for development of male gametophytes, so pollen develops from microspores within the sporangia of an anther. So this is sporangia and the inside is the pollen. And then through meiosis process, the microsporocyte will form microspores. So in the development of male gametophyte or the pollen grain, each one of the microsporangia contains diploid microsporocyte. So microspore mother cell. And then each microsporocyte divides by meiosis to produce 4 haploid microspores, each of which develop into pollen grain. And then a pollen grain becomes a mature male gametophyte when its generative nucleus divides and forms 2 sperm. So this is by mitosis process. So this usually occurs after a pollen grain lands on the stigma of a couple and the pollen tube begins to grow. So generative cell consists of tube cell. So this tube cell will eventually forming tube in the stigma to deliver the sperm to the egg.